Today, on this special edition of Fixing the Money Thing.
The Internal Revenue Code has now reached a point where it's upwards of 4 million words. That people cannot get their arms around this thing, and what happens is the IRS ends up taking unfair advantage of Jane and Joe America precisely because they don't know what the law is. My mission has always been is to teach people what their rights are, teach people what the law is. So yeah, you pay the taxes you owe, but you don't get run over in the process and you don't pay taxes you don't owe.
Are you paying the right amount in taxes? Let's ask the expert today on this financially free challenge edition of Fixing the Money Thing. With most families burdened in unsustainable levels of personal debt, most Americans believe there is no way to have financial freedom. However, author, pastor, and financial expert Gary Keesee believes most families can be completely out of debt in less than 7 years.
You must get out of debt. You've got to make right choices with your money right now.
Gary and his wife Drenda are now on a crusade to share this information that changed their life so that you can not just survive, but prosper in today's economy.
Your life can be totally transformed by an idea in the marketplace.
This is Gary Keesee, Fixing the Money Thing.
Welcome to Fixing the Money Thing. We're Gary and Drenda Keesee, and I want to welcome our audience today joining us here on Fixing the Money Thing.
Glad to have you today. And we're very glad to have you today with us as we are continuing our financially free challenge. And we're so excited today to bring back Dan Pilla, and a tax expert. Amazing information you're going to get today.
That's right, Drenda. You know, for 3 decades, Dan Pilla has been the nation's leader in taxpayer rights, widely recognized as one of the country's premier experts in IRS procedure. We need some of that, don't we? He's helped countless thousands of citizens across the nation in all kinds of tax issues and problems they thought they might never solve. He is the founder and director of the Tax Freedom Institute. Audience, let's welcome Dan Pilla.
Thank you, Gary. Good to see you, Brenda. Good to see you, Dean. My pleasure.
Awesome to have you, Dan.
It is my pleasure to be back.
We met, I brought it just to kind of bring up old times. I got the little series. We did a conference back in '98. That's when we first met, and I still have the not CDs either, the cassette tapes.
Yeah, this is BC.
This is BC.
Before CDs.
Yeah, before CDs. And so I know you had a great impact. We've been together talking and working together for a number of years now. Mm-hmm. But Dan, taxes have gotten out of hand. Yeah. And in our nation, we have what we call a Tax Freedom Day. So tell me about that. And again,
well, Tax Freedom Day is a calculation that's done by the Tax Institute in Washington, D.C., or the Tax Foundation, rather. And what happens is they figure the day of the year on which you've earned enough money to pay all your taxes. If starting January 1st, every dime that you earned at your job was paid over to the federal, state, and local governments to cover your taxes. Yeah. And so now we're to the point where you have to work into May, approximately May 1st, plus or minus, to have earned enough money to pay all your taxes, because what's happening is the typical American family now is paying about 40 to 45% of the income they earn in federal, state, and local taxes. It's the largest single expenditure that any family has. It's bigger than housing, it's bigger than the medical costs, it's bigger than education, it's bigger than their food costs, so it's a huge, huge burden.
And going up all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I think, though, the average person thinks they can't do anything about it. That they're just subject to this whole thing, and it's just too complicated and all that. But you would say no, that's not true.
Oh, I would say absolutely no, but it's even worse than that, Gary. The average person thinks they're getting money back from the government, because the fact of the matter is about 80% of the people get a tax refund. Right, yeah. And you don't get a tax refund because government got religion and decided to give you free money. You get a refund because you paid too much to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and this happens all the time. I'm dealing with folks that have tax problems, and I'll talk about what they paid in taxes last year, and I often hear the message, well, I didn't pay anything, I got a refund. Well, wait a minute. You know, let's look at your W-2 form. Your W-2 shows that you had $5,000 in wage withholding. If they got a $1,000 refund, it means they paid $4,000 in taxes. Right. They didn't get, you know, they didn't.
And it was interest-free money that you gave to the government, right?
That's exactly right. That's
well,
exactly
Dan, for
right.
30 years, I guess, about that, you've been involved in this area.
Yeah, it's more than 30 years now.
I've heard your story. Kind of tell me how you got involved with this.
Yeah, I got involved as a tax litigation consultant. It was really the industry chose me. Actually, God put me here, quite frankly.
Right.
It was never a conscious decision that I made that I want to go out and do this. And what happened is my father had a small business in St. Paul, Minnesota, my hometown, got behind on his employees withholding taxes, and in 1974 the IRS padlocked the doors, and they auctioned his equipment off for a couple cents on the dollar. And then in 1997, right in there, they turned their attention to the family home and they tried to seize and sell it for the back tax liability. And that's when I got involved. I remember coming home one day and my mom was sitting at the kitchen table like you folks are now, and she hands me this letter from the IRS and she says, "What do you make of this?" And I look at the thing and I said, well, it looks like they're going to try to seize the house. And she says, what do we do about it? Of course, I had no idea what to do. But what I did is I went over to the local law school and I started fumbling around the law library in the Internal Revenue Code. And I literally stumbled on to an area in the tax code that deals with taxpayers' rights issues and limits the power of the IRS. And I start reading in this, this code section. I didn't get 6 pages into this thing. And I discovered that the IRS was proceeding illegally to seize my parents' home. And so I did what any 18-year-old would do under the circumstances. I sued the IRS. And I thought, what could go wrong with that plan, right? And so it's a good thing I didn't know what I was doing, because the fact of the matter is that the prevailing attitude at the time was the IRS could do anything it wanted to do, and you couldn't stop them. Well, I didn't know that. I didn't know you couldn't stop them. So, being the young, naive 18-year-old.
Sure, you're trying to save the family home. Why wouldn't you fight?
I'll sue them. What the heck? And so I did. And I found myself in a federal courtroom in Minneapolis, and they flew an attorney in from the Justice Department in Washington.
You represent yourself?
I was representing my mother and my family and myself. Incredible. Yes, absolutely. And I'm standing, and I'm standing there in the courtroom, and I said, "Judge, the law says this, and they're trying to do that, and they shouldn't get away with it." And it was about that polished. It wasn't a very polished argument, I can tell you that. But when I get finished, the Justice Department attorney stands up and he blathers some things for 20 minutes, and I didn't know what this guy was talking about. I had no idea. Case law this and statutes that, I had no clue. It turned out it didn't matter, because when he was finished, the judge looked at him and pointed at me and said, "He's right." And then he slammed the gavel, and I thought, well, this is easy. And so I've been doing it ever since.
He said you were right.
He said he looked at the IRS attorney and pointed at me and said, "He's right," and he slammed the gavel. So there it is, baby. I stopped him, and I've been stopping him ever since.
Because you knew your rights, and I've heard that you know more than the IRS agents know about the tax attorney.
That's what the Associated Press said, that you know more about the IRS than the IRS does itself.
And the commissioner, yeah.
Yeah, obviously that proved true that day.
So we need advocates. People
there's
that
no question
understand the
about
law.
it, Drenda. Listen, the Internal Revenue Code has now reached a point where it's upwards of 4 million words every single year. Now, can you imagine that? Every single year, the National Taxpayer Advocate makes a report to Congress on the 20 most serious problems that taxpayers have in dealing with the Internal Revenue Service. This report has been made every year since 1998, so we're up to, 12 of them, 13 of them, whatever it is. And so now what we see is every single year, the report identifies tax law complexity as the #1 problem that taxpayers face. The law is so complex and so confusing, and now we're to the point where it's changed so often that people cannot get their arms around this thing. And what happens is the IRS ends up taking unfair advantage of Jane and Joe America precisely because they don't know what the law is. And so what my mission has always been is to teach people what their rights are, teach people what the law is. So yeah, you pay the taxes you owe, but you don't get run over in the process, and you don't pay taxes you don't owe.
What's the chances of a typical tax preparer knowing what all those millions of words say?
The tax preparers don't fare much better than individuals in terms of making mistakes. I mean, we see it all the time. The fact of the matter is that of the tax returns that go through an audit, whether they're prepared by an individual or a tax professional, or somebody uses one of the tax software programs, there's half a dozen of them out there. Some are good, some not so good. IRS has got its own, its own tax preparation deal on its website. People make mistakes with that as well. But the fact of the matter is, whether the return is prepared by a professional or an individual, the IRS's statistics indicate that 88% of the tax returns audited have some kind of mistake in them.
Okay, let's say that again. You just said that 88% of every tax return is incorrect.
Audited, every return audited by the IRS, and that is the only measure, right?
The assumption that that's a sample of the whole thing.
Exactly right. That's exactly
so
correct.
88%, yeah.
So I mean, this is a serious problem. Now the question is that 88% number right? All right, because that's what I challenge, and I'll tell you why.
Probably right. Yeah.
in every audit situation that I see where the Internal Revenue Service looks at a tax return, makes a report, and says this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, the IRS is wrong in its audit decisions between 60 to 90% of the time. And these are government statistics as well. So I mean, what is correct here? Is the 88% number right? I don't know.
It's too complicated.
I don't know. You're very encouraging, though. I mean,
here's what the bottom line is, Gary. Yeah. I mean, it is very encouraging in this sense.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is that just because the IRS says you might owe additional taxes doesn't mean you do. You have appeal rights. No decision that the IRS makes on the in an initial audit situation is final. You have the right to have it reviewed at least twice as you go up the appeals ladder. And when you challenge these audit decisions and you use your appeal rights that you have available to you, you're going to win your case most of the time. Now that's a fact of life. Wow. That is encouraging.
That is encouraging.
Yes, and you're going to tell us how to do that today, right?
Absolutely.
We come back, we're going to talk to the audience, and they have some questions. Being businessmen, they'd like to ask you today.
Sure.
We're going to jump into this. I have a feeling this could be a long discussion, but we'll be right back in just a second.
Share your success story of debt elimination. Get your financially free kit to get started. Share your story, and we'll bless someone with $3,000 to continue paying off debt and enjoying financial freedom. Visit financiallyfreechallenge.com, leave your email address, and share your success story with us. Today's resources from Fixing the Money Thing are designed to start a financial revolution in your life, get you living the life God destined for you, and of course, fix your money thing. Are you living your dream? Is debt causing you to trade your joy for paying the creditors? Then it's time to be financially free.
Are you in debt or living paycheck to paycheck? Then I would suggest you may need a financial revolution.
New from Fixing the Money Thing, the Financially Free Kit delivers the tools you need to be free from debt forever. The kit starts with the all-new Financially Free Workbook, a practical how-to guide filled with step-by-step instructions for collecting the data you need for your free get-out-of-debt plan, forms, and worksheets. The kit also includes a DVD from Gary, walking you through the workbook steps to financial freedom.
This workbook will take you step by step through the process to get your family free.
Next, you get the Financial Foundations Toolkit, 6 CDs of powerful information to keep you tracking toward financial freedom. CDs include Revolution of the Mind Messages on Fear, Money Proverbs and Finances, Gary's Foundational Message, Heaven Here and Now, How to Protect Your Investments in Retirement, and Gary's It's My Business CD. Call, write, or go to GaryKeesee.com, and for only $75, get the new Financially Free Kit that also includes a set of financial scripture cards, handy reminders of God's promises for your finances, and a calculator from Fixing the Money Thing to track your progress.
Until you stop the debt trap and stop living according to the world system, you're not going to be free.
Call 888-391-LIFE. That's 888-391-5433. Visit GaryKeesee.com or write to Faith Life Now, P.O. Box 779, New Albany, Ohio 43054 to order the Financially Free Kit, Workbook, Instructional DVD, 6 CD series, Financial Scripture Cards, and Calculator for your $75 or more gift in support of Faith Life Ministries. For only $99 or more, we'll include the book that started it all, Fixing the Money Thing by Gary Keesee. Get started understanding kingdom principles. Read Fixing the Money Thing. Share your email address and you'll start receiving weekly encouragement emails from Gary throughout your journey to financial freedom. Gary Keesee wants to revolutionize your finances and teach you the kingdom principles you need to fix your money thing. And for anyone needing more tax help, look for tax expert Dan Pilla's resources at GaryKeesee.com as well. Take the challenge. Call, write, or log on now to get your financially free resources to help you destroy debt and start living free.
We're back with tax expert Dan Pilla and consumer advocate, author of the IRS Problem Solver. And the Associated Press said his work is the final word on IRS issues.
That's pretty powerful.
It is.
I want to talk to you. You're my friend. Yeah, let's find out what's going on. Today on Fixing the Money Thing, we're talking about taxes, and Dan is the founder and president of Tax Freedom Institute.
Correct.
And so you spent your whole life, the last 40 years, so
all my adult life,
your adult life, helping people understand their rights. I think this giant, the IRS, is people are like it's this huge thing that you can't do anything about.
There's fear.
Everyone has to pay taxes, so I'll just pay my taxes and keep them at bay. Keep it quiet. But we just discussed last segment how much that is, a lot of money.
Right.
And so we want people to have knowledge, and lack of knowledge costs money. So we have questions from our audience today we're going to jump into, and let's find out the answer. All right, so first off, offers and compromise. We got a family that can't pay their taxes. Tell us what offers and compromise is.
The offer and compromise program is the IRS's flagship program that allows you to settle tax debts for less than you owe. If you owe the IRS 50 grand, for example, and there's no way you can possibly pay that money, then there is an opportunity for you to go into the IRS and negotiate with them. Now, whoever heard of negotiating with the IRS? Whoever heard of making a deal with the IRS to pay them less than you owe them? But that's exactly what the offer and compromise allows you to do. And this program, in fact, there's a number of different elements to the program, but the most common one is I owe X, I can't pay, I can pay something less than X, and so maybe if you owe them 50 grand and you go to the IRS and say, look, I can pay you 10, all right, if they accept that, now you've settled your case for 20 cents on the dollar. And this is a very, very solid program, Gary, and it helps a lot of people, but you have to qualify. Not everybody qualifies, and it's not a situation where, you just call them up and say, hey, boys, will you take less? It's not that simple. It's not like buying a used car. You got to demonstrate that you can't pay the amount they've assessed, and you have to demonstrate that the amount you're offering is the most amount of money they're going to get from you in a reasonably short window of time. And it's basically a math formula, and there is a whole process for doing that. And in fact, my book, How to Get Tax Amnesty, talks people step by step through that process. There have been a lot of changes that the IRS has made to this program, and particularly in May of 2012, not that long ago, they made sweeping changes again, which I've written about at length in my tax amnesty package, which I think you folks are going to offer to people. And this takes you step by step through every element of the program, and it shows you exactly how to do it. And I'm telling you, if you're struggling with tax debts that you can't pay, you're facing wage levies, bank levies, tax liens, these kinds of things, you need to look into that tax amnesty program, and you need to look into the offer and compromise as a potential way to get yourself free of that forever.
In offers and compromise, then, how many people do you think in the United States owe taxes that, or let's say, are late on taxes? Do you have a kind of statistic on that? Or
Well, I do. The IRS is there's two IRS numbers that we can look at. The first number is its accounts receivable ledger. In other words, how many dollars are assessed on the books that are collectible that haven't been collected, right? An accounts receivable, people that owe you money. IRS has got an accounts receivable ledger. It's $374 billion right now. I mean, this is huge, and it has gone up by about $100 billion in the last 10 years. So it just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. So the dollar amounts are staggering, but the number of people that owe that money, Gary, is also staggering. And the IRS estimates that there's about between 17 to 20 million people that owe that money, and that doesn't even include the non-filers. One of the things I talk about in the tax amnesty material is the fact that there's so many people that get so desperate and so hopeless with their tax problems that they go completely underground. They stop filing tax returns at all. They try to live on, in a cash sort of environment, and they're kind of living in a financial cave, as it were. And these people, of course, can't be counted, and the IRS estimates there's between 10 to 12 million of those. So we've got a huge epidemic of tax problems out there that this tax
These are severe problems.
Yes.
But we have 88%, you said, of all the returns are wrong or so-called.
Yeah, so-called.
So a lot of people are paying. In fact, I read a study, Money Magazine said that they can guarantee almost anyone's paying 25% more than they need to in taxes just because they don't know.
You're exactly right, and it really is. It really is more scientific than Money Magazine. Not that I'm slamming Money Magazine. No. I'm not. I didn't read their study. I don't know how they did their study, but I'll tell you this. In 2000, the year 2000, 2001, the Government Accountability Office did 2 analyses of randomly selected tax returns that they pulled out of the IRS. And the Government Accountability Office analyzed these returns very carefully, and there was thousands of them they took to get a representative sample of the universe. And they found that the typical tax return overstates the tax liability by about $2,500, $2,500. So I don't know where that comes into the percentage necessarily. But people are paying thousands of dollars a year more in taxes than they owe, and that's been confirmed by government studies.
Wow. Yeah.
Most of us are buying the IRS a car every year.
It's amazing. I'll tell you, it's amazing. And what is so hurtful about that is the fact of the matter, and you guys know this better than I do. You know, 1/3 of the American families out there are living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, exactly. You know, if they get a flat tire during the course of the month, it's a financial crisis. Yes. You know, and yet they're overpaying their taxes by thousands of dollars every year.
We've been trying to tell people.
It's unbelievable.
That's why we're doing the program today.
Yes, there's answers in the IRS problem solver. I know our audience is looking for some answers today,
too. Let me go on
another
question here. Penalties in the area of a business climate, not your personal mom and pop, just family, salaried. But of course, we teach some of the best ways to have tax deductions and of course, prosper in life is to have a business. Sure. But business penalties, I mean, I get emails all the time from guys that have employees. They get behind on the employee withholding, and you know.
That's what put my dad out of business.
Yeah, same thing. So what would you tell a business guy that finds himself in that situation?
Well, here's the thing you need to understand. Businesses carry the brunt of the tax burden. They carry the brunt of the penalties. Last year, in 2012, the IRS assessed over 37 million penalties against individuals and businesses, and about 2/3 of them were against businesses. And the vast majority of those penalties are associated with wage withholding on employees. Gary and Drenda, this is a huge problem. It's a massively complex system, especially new businesses that just start to get into this get buried in a hurry with this problem. But here's what these businesses need to understand. Every single penalty provision in the tax code has a reasonable cause provision. And what it means very simply is if you acted in good faith and based on a reasonable cause for your actions, you didn't deliberately disregard IRS rules and regulations, the penalties can be canceled. In the Problem Solver book, I have 2 chapters in that book that deal specifically with penalties and a 3rd chapter that deals with interest. Because I've heard people tell me 1,000 times, I can pay my taxes. It's the penalties and interest that are killing me, right? And the businesses will tell you that too. It's the doggone penalties. Why do they have to keep piling on the penalties? It's like putting the boot on the throat. But we can get the boot off the throat by what we call the penalty abatement procedure. Now here's something else that people need to understand, especially businesses, especially new businesses. The IRS has a first-time abatement policy. It's sort of the IRS's mulligan. Any golfers? It's the IRS's mulligan. Hey, baby, I want a do-over. My shot went into the water. I want a do-over. When you're a new business, you've not had a previous employment tax filing requirement, you make a mistake on the front end the first time, the IRS will give you a do-over. But you got to ask for it. They're not going to call you up and say, hey, Gary, you know you got a do-over coming? No, you got to ask for it. You got to know what to ask for. It's called the first-time abate policy.
I have a feeling we could keep this going on.
We could. You got a whole stack of questions here, Gary. Look at all those.
Question after question. But right now, get some of this information out there. We need to get out there. Let's take a look at that right now.
Today's resources from Fixing the Money Thing are designed to start a financial revolution in your life, get you living the life God destined for you, and of course, fix your money thing. Are you living your dream? Is debt causing you to trade your joy for paying the creditors? Then it's time to be financially free.
Are you in debt or living paycheck to paycheck? Then I would suggest you may need a financial revolution.
New from Fixing the Money Thing, the Financially Free Kit delivers the tools you need to be free from debt forever. The kit starts with the all-new Financially Free Workbook, a practical how-to guide filled with step-by-step instructions for collecting the data you need for your free get-out-of-debt plan, forms, and worksheets. The kit also includes a DVD from Gary, walking you through the workbook steps to financial freedom.
This workbook will take you step by step through the process to get your family free.
Next, you get the Financial Foundations Toolkit, 6 CDs of powerful information to keep you tracking toward financial freedom. CDs include Revolution of the Mind Messages on Fear, Money Proverbs and Finances, Gary's Foundational Message, Heaven Here and Now, How to Protect Your Investments in Retirement, and Gary's It's My Business CD. Call, write, or go to GaryKeesee.com, and for only $75, get the new Financially Free Kit that also includes a set of financial scripture cards, handy reminders of God's promises for your finances, and a calculator from Fixing the Money Thing to track your progress.
Until you stop the debt trap and stop living according to the world system, you're not going to be free.
Call 888-391-LIFE. That's 888-391-5433. Visit GaryKeesee.com or write to Faith Life Now, P.O. Box 779, New Albany, Ohio 43054 to order the Financially Free Kit, Workbook, Instructional DVD, 6 CD series, Financial Scripture Cards, and Calculator for your $75 or more gift in support of Faith Life Ministries. For only $99 or more, we'll include the book that started it all, Fixing the Money Thing by Gary Keesee. Get started understanding kingdom principles. Read Fixing the Money Thing. Share your email address and you'll start receiving weekly encouragement emails from Gary throughout your journey to financial freedom. Gary Keesee wants to revolutionize your finances and teach you the kingdom principles you need to fix your money thing. And for anyone needing more tax help, look for tax expert Dan Pilla's resources at GaryKeesee.com as well. Take the challenge. Call, write, or log on now to get your financially free resources to help you destroy debt and start living free.
We've been talking to Dan Pilla, author of the IRS Problem Solver, part of our Financially Free Challenge Kit that we're challenging you to get out of debt with this month.
Yes, and you know, Dan, it's been just great to talk about taxes because we have been teaching people to get out of debt. And of course, the question always comes up, where do I find the money? Well, as you said, they spend so much money on taxes. If we can reposition that money into their cash flow, they can get out of debt. There's, like you said, thousands of dollars there that they're overspending that they don't know.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And the typical family, I mean, never mind not claiming your deductions and all the rest of that, just allowing the IRS to over-withhold on a weekly or monthly basis. You know, as we said earlier in the program, about 80% of the people out there get a tax refund. That's not free money. That's your money that you let the government keep for no good reason.
And so we're excited about that. Our month's offer, of course, our Financially Free Kit talking about how to get out of debt. Go to GaryKeesee.com. Get a hold of the material and consider partnering with us here at Fixing the Money Thing. We're on your team. We're trying to get information to you to help you win in life and to understand what you have a right to in the kingdom of God as well as in the natural realm. So we're excited about taxes.
And we want to pray for you too. So let us know. Call us. Email us. We want to pray for you.
So we look forward to hearing from you at Fixing the Money Thing. But right now, we want to thank Dan Pilla for being with us today. It's been a privilege and an honor. Excellent. We'll see you next time right here on Fixing the Money Thing.
Fixing the Money Thing is graciously brought to you by the Forward Financial Group and Lindsay Honda and Acura. Share your success story of debt elimination. Get your financially free kit to get started. Share your story, and we'll bless someone with $3,000 to continue paying off debt and enjoying financial freedom. Visit financiallyfreechallenge.com, leave your email address, and share your success story with us. When you need God's help, prayer is always the answer. Pastor Gary understands and wants to help. That's why he has caring friends standing by 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, ready to pray with you. Call and let's agree together. Come experience Faith Life Church for yourself and become part of a close-knit gathering of people who want something more. Located on the east side of Columbus, just 10 minutes from Easton off of 161. Come home and experience new life at Faith Life Church. Join Gary and Drenda Keesee in Raleigh, North Carolina, May 16th, 17th, and 18th at Celebration Church, 8700 Capitol Boulevard. For directions or more information, go to GaryKeesee.com. Fixing the Money Thing is brought to you by the partners and friends of Faith Life Now.